We're going to get the Seattle perspective. We're going to get the New England perspective. Kevin and I, we're going to give our unbiased perspective on this game since both of our teams got knocked out much earlier. And so we're going to get into that. We're going to get to this or that a little bit later, and we're going to close things out, even sprinkling, as Toddy would say, a little bit of basketball at the end, because we're all Sacramento Kings fans on this panel, even though we all have different football affiliations. We're all Kings fans on this panel, and a fan favorite recently got traded this past weekend from Sacramento. So we're going to get to all that here on episode 179 of Stats Over Politics. So guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it, as the Seattle Seahawks and New England Patriots will be facing off in Super Bowl 60. As I just mentioned, a rematch of Super Bowl 49. So, Kevin, before we hear from Mac and Emiliano regarding players to watch for on their respective teams, storylines, things that the national media or even us have overlooked when it comes to each of their individual teams, before we hear the intricacies from each of them, Kevin, just what are your general thoughts coming into this game?
This is going to be a hell of a game. A lot of people are disrespecting the Patriots, and I get it. I don't know what Emiliano is going to think about this, but they had a cupcake schedule. But I mean, deservedly so. You're a top 4 pick. You're not going to have the hardest road to the playoffs as a top 4 pick. So next year they'll have a tough schedule. So we'll get to see kind of how they bounce back from that, and if they're a legit team. The one thing that I'm just going to strictly focus on the playoffs here. The only thing that worries me about the Patriots is that O-line. And I get it. They've played 3 top 5 defenses, but allowing 15 sacks in 3 games is a lot. Drake May has played heroically, and they're getting it done with guys like Matt Collins and Keyshawn Butte and Stephon Diggs. A lot of guys that people look at and say, there's 1,000 better NFL receiving corps, and they're getting it done. And that's because second-year Drake May has taken such a leap. And a lot of people are going to look at this playoff run and kind of call it a Mickey Mouse run. You play the Chargers, that stink. You play the Texans without Dalton Schultz and Nico Collins, and then you play the Broncos without Bo Nix. So I definitely see a lot of perspectives, but you have to give them credit because, like I said, they're playing against 3 of the top defenses in the NFL. The Texans were arguably the best defense in the NFL. The Broncos were second. So in the AFC Championship game, the divisional round, they played 2 of the top 2 defenses and found a way to get it done. And for Drake May to really not even struggle, just not have the performance we saw in the regular season, shows that they can win ugly games. Mm-hmm. They have scored the lowest amount of points on the way to a Super Bowl appearance. And a lot of people can look at it and say, well, this is the Patriots. They're not playing well. But winning ugly games shows a lot more than winning a blowout. I hate to be the guy to bash on the Niners, but I'm sure Mac didn't really feel any different about his team when they beat them 40-6. You
don't hate to be that guy.
You look at your team differently when you can win the ugly games. It's easy to win a blowout and keep a lead. But when you win the dirty, nasty games in the snow, first half completely dry weather, and then you're playing in the Snow Bowl, it goes to show a lot that this Patriots team is able to rally. And they lead the NFL in explosive plays. So they don't need 8, 9, 10 play drives. They've never been that all season. So why would they become that in the playoffs? So a lot of people are looking at, they're not scoring a lot of points, but they're playing against the top 3 defenses in the world. So you gotta not look at it as just a fan, but you have to understand that this is the playoffs. You're not going to play the Jets. You're not going to play, the Cardinals. You're going to play – people got here for a reason because they're one of the best in their conference. The Patriots come into this game, their 3 losses were by 7 points or fewer. To go 20 games and not lose by more than a touchdown says a lot about that team. Because we see blowouts all the time. We see teams that lose by 10. We see teams that lose by 25. They haven't lost by more than 7. So to say that they've made it this far and haven't seen a team beat them by more than a touchdown shows that they're going to be within any game that they want to be in. And this game's really going to come down to their defense. Their defense has been arguably amazing throughout the year. Yeah, they're not the Broncos. Yeah, they're not the Chargers, the Texans, but they're not no slapdick team. And Christian Gonzalez is going to have to come out and play his ass off. And from the Seahawks standpoint, this defense has been amazing. They have 5 players with 40-plus pressures in DeMarcus Lawrence, Brian Murphy, Uchenna Nwosu, Leonard Williams, and Blue Mafe. This defense is legit. And I'm not going to come on here and only talk about one side of the ball because I don't know if you guys know this, but Shaun, well, I know you guys know Shaun's a big Ohio State fan, but I'm also a Ohio State fan. So JSN has a lot of love in my heart. This offense has a plus 230 point differential, including their 2 playoff games. Highest point differential since the 2015 Panthers. And I get it, the Panthers didn't win, but to have that dominant of offense carry not only in the regular season but into the playoffs goes to show how legit this team is. And since 2000, there have been 8 Super Bowl champions with 3 or fewer losses. So they can join an elite company. And when we talk about these teams with 3 or fewer losses, we talk about the 16 Patriots, the 04 Patriots, 03 Patriots, the 13 Hawks, the 09 Saints, the 24 and 17 Eagles, and the 22 Chiefs. So when you talk about those teams and you don't mention any of the stats behind it, you say those are some damn good teams. So to only lose 3 games, it shows a lot. But on the other end, the Patriots can also rejoin that list because they also have 3 losses. So whoever wins this game, we're going to look at them as a late team. So we talked about the point differential for the Patriots, but the Seahawks have only lost games by a combined 9 points. And their biggest spread was week 1 versus the Niners that I'm sure Mac will agree they gave that game away. I know Shaun will probably feel otherwise, but there's a lot of things going into this game. Are we doing predictions after this, or are we doing?
Yeah, well, we'll hear from Seattle. We'll hear from the greater New England area. I mean, I see Boston and Emiliano's background, so we will hear from each team's perspectives first before we get the predictions from Kevin, myself, also Jaevon, who we have his prediction in the bank to share with the listeners. Perfect. And so now.
Well, I just got one more thing to say. Yeah. I didn't know if I was supposed to.
No, you're good.
I talked about how good this Seahawks defense is, but we've seen them give up points. We saw in the NFC Championship game alone, they gave up 479 yards and 29 first downs. So as much as I say how good the Seahawks defense is, no defense is perfect. We've seen the Rams be able to get to them twice. And I'm not saying that the Patriots have a Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, but it's doable. So as much as I'm talking about them being the boogeyman gets got.
All right. And so I'm going to toss it over to Seattle now. While it may be Seattle, West Coast is the best coast, in my opinion. And I love the city of Seattle when it comes to traveling there. Beautiful city, terrible sports teams, beautiful city. And so one thing that I did omit from Mac's intro is we talk a lot on this podcast about our former co-host, Mr. Gary Singh. Mac was also a co-host of a podcast with Gary Singh as part of the State Hornet, No Limits. After I graduated, Mac replaced me. He upgraded with Gary, but they ended up doing No Limits. And so Mac has quite the history with podcasts as he was the podcast editor of the State Hornet. And so now let's toss it over to Seattle because, Mac, you have seen your team be on an absolute tear recently. I can't even be happy about that week 1 win anymore because the last 2 games were so dominant for the Seahawks that just took all the joy out of it for me. And so I want to toss it over to you, Mac, just to get your thoughts on who are some of the top playmakers that the Seahawks have. Kevin just highlighted some of them defensively specifically, but in your opinion, Mac, who are some of those top playmakers, top storylines, and things that the general audience may have overlooked when it comes to your Seattle Seahawks this season?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think if you asked a lot of Seattle fans going into the season what their expectations would have been, coming off of 10 wins and missing the playoffs on tiebreaker, I think most fans would have been happy with a deep-ish playoff run, maybe divisional, maybe NFC Championship. I don't think anybody quite expected a Super Bowl caliber team, much less the dominance that we've seen from Seattle over this season. And, that week 1 loss did hurt me. And I'm when it happened, I said we were a week 1 away from starting the season 1-0. But what I like about this team is their resiliency. They have a crazy ability to bounce back from mistakes, be it small or major, as we've seen many times throughout the season, especially in the NFC Championship game. Again, my favorite corner of all time, Reek Woolen, having a meltdown in the NFC Championship game almost cost the Seahawks their chance to win the Super Bowl this year. But the team rallied around. The defense stepped up when it mattered. They did give up, what was it, 28 points? I forget exactly the number. But, I mean, you saw their ability. Say again?
I think 27.
27. But you saw their ability to come back at the end of the game. Nick Emenwari made a great play on defense, and that pretty much sealed the game. I think this Seattle team is dangerous. When we got down to the divisional round, I looked around and I said the Seahawks, out of the teams that are left, were the most complete team on both sides of the ball. They're not infallible. They have weaknesses. But when you look at how the offense clicks and how the defense clicks, they're the strongest team right now in the playoffs, and that's why they made the Super Bowl, and that's why I think you see a lot of people leaning towards them in the Super Bowl. Sam Darnold coming in, replacing Geno Smith. I have to admit, I'm going to hold my hand up on this one. I got this one totally wrong. I was a Geno Smith, not quite truther, but I acknowledged that, I thought they were similar in terms of ceiling. I actually thought Geno's ceiling was just a tiny bit higher, but this season can prove me totally wrong. I was shocked to see what happened in Vegas, and I have Raider fans that were very upset with me that I told them they were getting a stable quarterback, and I don't know what happened with that one. That will hurt me forever that I was so wrong on that one. But Sam Darnold, I will give him the credit he deserves. He had a great season. It was not a perfect season by any stretch of the imagination. He had a lot of turnovers. You saw that first Rams game, even that second Rams game in week 15. That was scary too. But he managed to pull through and come through when it matters. And I think that's a recurring feature of this team. They come through when it matters. They only have 3 losses. All of those 3 losses, I think if you add them up, they're by less than a total of 10 points. So when you look at this team, when you look at the playmakers, Darnold, as I mentioned, Kenneth Walker, going into a contract year, he's putting up great numbers. It was a great 1-2 tandem with him and Zach Charbonnet. We're going to miss him in the Super Bowl. But I think as long as the offense stays producing at the level they are at, and I don't see any indication why they wouldn't, it should be, as long as the Seahawks come out and play their game, I think they have a very good chance to walk away with their second Lombardi. Kenneth Walker, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Cooper Kupp. He's not the most prolific scorer, prolific catch grabber on the team, but he comes through when it matters. Rashid Shaheed's been a game changer. That was an excellent in-season trade. A.J. Barner's been doing his thing, be it with tush push or the barnstorm, as we call it in Seattle. But he's become a reliable pass catcher. The offensive line is doing what it needs to do. The defense, you kind of listed off some of the players already. Our front 7 is our strongest point. When you look at Lawrence, Murphy, Williams, Hall, Ernest Jones, Uchenna Nwosu, they're just wrecking shop. And I love what they're doing on the defensive front 7. The weakest part of Seattle's game is going to be the secondary. And I think you've seen that throughout the season. They have a tendency to give up plays on third down. They have a tendency to kind of fold, and you see that a lot with the high-scoring games we saw in Tampa Bay, in Los Angeles. And they also have the tendency to turn on lockdown mode whenever they feel like it. So it depends on how this team shows up, but I think Seattle's got a really good chance to win the Super Bowl this year.
The biggest thing that made my ears perk up right there was that Woolen is your favorite cornerback of all time.
Now, when I said that, that was in jest. I don't know if that came across on the mic. That was in jest.
Okay.
I've been screaming at him. I've been screaming at him all season. He's such a frustrating player because you can see the talent that's there, and we saw it his rookie year, but he's just got a tendency to make almost game-changing errors, and he's got to be able to reel that in. And this could be his last game with Seattle. I believe his contract is up at the end of the year. So, it'd be a nice way to go out, but he could also be the reason why we don't win it.
Mac, would you say, just kind of with the sports crossover, that Woolen is kind of like a Draymond Green-esque player where it's like you love to have him on your team, every other team hates him? Because I've hated him for a long time. But I will say, because what I noticed throughout that NFC Championship game is, and this is him in every single game, but it was highlighted on a bigger stage of him just talk nonstop. And I will say he did the respectable thing at the end, and I believe he went right up to Sean McVay and tried to shake his hand a la a Richard Sherman. And that's why it kind of perked my ears up because I was thinking like, Mac's favorite cornerback isn't 49ers legend Richard Sherman. Like I'm shocked. But now going over to New England with Emiliano, if you could, please give us the case for New England just when it comes to top playmakers, storylines from throughout the season, and things that the general audience might have overlooked.
Yeah, so quick story time. So I grew up pretty casual football fan. I did not have a great pull to one team because of a family or anything like that. Things led me to New England probably around 2007. So around, Randy Moss. Yeah, it might be really easy to just go ahead and start rooting for a 16-0 team. Best friend at the time was actually a Giants fan. So it feels like that offseason was kind of my baptism into, yeah, I'm going to be a Patriots fan. Like, this is the team that I'm going to root for. And so I had already missed maybe the beginning of the Brady dynasty. And so I don't know what that felt like. I was also, 8 years old. All that I could say about this team as someone who did not watch every snap, I definitely don't have stats on the top of my head. But what I can say about this team is that it just feels like a team built with culture. I can't name off a bunch of all pro players. Obviously Drake May is, in the running for MVP. We have, I think, what every Super Bowl winning team requires, in my opinion, in a lockdown corner. I'd put Gonzo up against just about anybody in the league in a one-on-one match. We have maybe, a lightning rod when he wants to be in Travion Henderson. We have, in my opinion, one of the more reliable tight ends over the past 5 or 6 years in Hunter Henry. A Bill Belichick signing that was widely hated on at the time, by the way. Looking back, I think a few of those things Bill did right at the end. Maybe he wasn't as out of his mind as people think. And then, Milton Williams, maybe the best signing, at least defensively in the offseason. Like, I just, what Milton Williams has done to kind of grab, like, he's almost a sense of gravity for that defense to just like, hey, I'm going to have this front seven kind of locked down. And I think everyone else around him, I have it here because I wanted to be sure I came in a little informed, and it just feels like a true Patriots roster. Like, there's a few studs, yes. I won't argue that, Stephon Diggs has come out at times and has been the reason we won a couple games. Ramondre Stevenson, if you're a fantasy football player and you have Ramondre Stevenson, you love him or you hate him because, the week you need him most is the week that, Travion Henderson goes off for 3 TDs. So I think that's just how it's always going to be with Patriots running backs. But yeah, a few studs, but really, like, I would say like 45 just dudes. And culture really is everything. And I think from the Seattle perspective, it's really two sides of how NFL rosters are built these days. Like, Seattle has, I think, top to bottom, one of the best rosters in the league. When you look at the O-line, you look at some of the offensive weapons, JSN being, I think right now, probably the best receiver in the league. If we were to have a dynasty draft, in the NFL, I'd imagine that any GM would probably be picking JSN top 3 wide receiver. They have the running backs. I think the two-headed monster there between Charbonnet and Walker. But New England is just a true testament to how coaching and culture can flip in a year. I know OH fans up at the top might not want to hear this, but look at Indiana. Look at what Indiana has managed to do in just 2 years, and look at what Vrabel has managed to come in and do. I don't know how many players are still here from the Mayo year from last year. I don't know the exact number. I don't know how many starters I should say, but it's not like the team looks that different from a name on the back of a jersey perspective than it did last year. What's different is that coaching, Drake May really stepping into year 2, and just the Patriot way being like, we're just going to figure out how to win. It's not always going to look pretty, but we're just going to figure out how to win. And I'll close with this, just on the kind of like the opening of it. And my opinion, once you get to the Super Bowl, it's anybody's game. And I really do feel that way. It's not just, David and Goliath. So David looked saying like, we're here. I may as well fight you. Like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But once you get to the Super Bowl, we've seen it before. I mean, look at the 07 Giants, right? Like, great defense, but nobody walked into that game expecting that they were going to beat the Patriots. So I really, not to tease maybe my pick, I really think that it could be anybody's game. It is not going to be, I do not think that it is going to be a blowout in either direction. I really, really highly doubt that it's going to be anybody's game, and I'm super excited. I'm super stoked.
I'm happy the Giants got shaded, not the 17 Eagles. I was worried you were going to say the Eagles.
Well, one more thing that I wanted to throw back to our guests before we hear Kevin's prediction and pick for the game is we talked about in the opening how this is a rematch of Super Bowl 49 and how they hand the ball to Lynch and it's a totally different story. Seattle could end up going back to back, beginning a dynasty at that point. And as a 49ers fan, I was genuinely shaking in my boots because I was like, oh my God, Russell Wilson won a Super Bowl in his second year. They're back again. They're going to be back for year after year. And then suddenly it just turned into one. And Mac, I know I'm just putting salt in the wound. It's the camaraderie that we have as rival teams. But I think back to Super Bowl 49, and it's just crazy how the next 10 years completely shifted based on one play almost. And so, Mac, I think it's clear how you feel about that game and think about that game. And so before I get your thoughts, Emiliano, you were saying that you really got immersed in the Patriots around 2007. And so you were locked in for that Super Bowl run. Just how do you remember the last Super Bowl against the Seahawks?
I think at that time we were still we walked into every playoffs like we are winning until we don't, and I think part of it was that I was younger and naive, it's been, 6 years, 5 years. Since,
11.
Yep. So, well, since we've been relevant, won a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I'm 32 now. So basically, my entire young adulthood and being a teenager, if the Patriots were in the playoffs, we were going to the Super Bowl. And so I think that, that was my mindset at the time, even post 2007. It was really just they just win. And that's really all there is to it. Now, looking back, obviously you lose 3. So, I think stats over politics, if you think about it, maybe you shouldn't have that perspective, but really it's hard not to. It's like being ranked number 1 in the nation at the beginning of a college football season. It's like the entire year that ranking is just on your shoulders. And I think as a Patriots, up until Brady left and everything fell apart, that's what it was. It's like the Chiefs in these last 5 or 6 years. You walk into the season and the Chiefs are winning the Super Bowl until they don't.
Yeah, and it really is bittersweet that the first year that we don't get the Chiefs in the playoffs, that somehow New England finds their way
back and forth.
Listen, when they brought Thanos back to go get the Infinity Stones, and Thanos said you couldn't live with your own failure, so where did that bring you? Right back to me. There's not a better parallel than what's happening right now. Everybody couldn't stop complaining about Taylor Swift and the Chiefs, and here we are, right back where we were 6 years ago, Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Well, for me as a 49ers fan, my team has lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl twice and didn't have to face that fate against New England. So if I'm choosing the better of two evils, I'm going to go with the Patriots every single time. But it's still tough. Mac, the Seahawks are the team that I hate more than any other professional sports franchise. And so I want to get your thoughts on Super Bowl 49 and just how you reflect on it now, looking ahead at your chance to get revenge. But also I wanted to ask you, Mac, because of how I always talk about the Seahawks being the team that I hate the most. For you as a Sacramento Kings fan, would you say that you hate the Lakers more, or do you hate the 49ers or another team more? Or even the Warriors you could throw in there, I guess.
That's a hard question. So I think I dislike San Francisco more when they're winning, but if you ask me any day of the week as a Kings fan, I'm always going to want to beat the hell out of the Lakers and the Warriors. And I think since they play more often than Seattle and San Francisco do, I tend to think of them more with animosity. I hate them all, let's be honest. But I think it's such a hard question to ask. It honestly depends on what time of the season we're in. But it's always nice to beat a rival. It's always nice to put a rival down. And I just hate mouthy San Francisco fans, and there's a lot of them. And I think it's because I live in Northern California.
Where would you say I rank? Because I like to think that, like I'm a more reasonable 49ers fan. Like, obviously, I'm going to talk my shit when the opportunity comes. Kevin may disagree as well, but I tend to think like we have a mutual friend, Mac and I do, Matthew Pearson, who we went to college with as well. And he's an Eagles fan, just like you, Kevin. But Matthew tells me how much he hates 49ers fans, but he said he can tolerate me. Mac, can you tolerate me, or am I kind of in that category too?
I can tolerate you, but I think it's because I know you. It depends on the energy you come at me with, right? Like if this is my first time meeting you and your lead off is Super Bowl 49, we're not going to get along. But I think it just depends, is it all you talk about all the time? Like, no, Shaun and I can talk about any team, any day of the week without it descending into fans just throwing gotchas at each other. So I think I respect that.
I just one maybe defense for you, Shaun. And I have a lot of family, a lot of close friends that are Niner fans. I think you have legitimate case to complain and be so butthurt over the last 5 or 6 years, simply because
or 31,
not a shadow of a doubt that this Kyle Shanahan run and John Lynch run, you guys have had the best roster in the NFL more times than not. And so to get that close, you're getting close to Bills territory. Like you're right there. That 20 years from now, we're going to hear about that early 2020s Niners team that just couldn't win it all, like the what if of the Brock Purdy era. But yeah, yeah. So just a little maybe defense for you there, Shaun. It hurts when you should be winning and you're not. That's for sure.
Since we're giving Shaun a flower, Shaun, out of all the Niner fans I know, you're probably the one I can talk the most with. Toddy, can't stand him. Me and Toddy talk all the time, and it's always shots, and it's just low blows. Maybe, it was just an episode with just me and Shaun, and we were just going back and forth. It was like, Shaun, this is the first time, we've said something nice about each other's teams. Like, me and Toddy would go to the grave before he said, Kevin, you know what? I think Jalen Hurts is actually pretty good at football.
Yeah, that was pretty... I will say, now that we've been doing this podcast together for 3 NFL seasons and over 3 years, it was quite entertaining this year. The fact that Kevin and I, we decided to play nice for most of the season. We were respectful. We played nice up until it got late in the season. And then it was like, all right, the switch has been flipped. All that is out the door. But real quickly, Mac, could you reflect on Super Bowl 49 now that you're 1 win away from potentially getting revenge? Like, does that make it any better, or it's not going to take away from the last 11 years of pain? Just where is your mindset as you look ahead to this game with that in mind?
Look, it's never going to take away that pain, right? We were 1 yard away from getting 2 Super Bowls in a row, beating the greatest quarterback duo this league's ever seen. It's never going to fully take away that pain. I will say it will bring a small sense of closure, I think, being able to beat the team that inflicted the pain of that on us. Because if you look at what happened the seasons after, the Seahawks were always, over these past 11 years, they've always been a good team, but they've never been quite that, this team could win the Super Bowl. I think there was only 1 year where you could say we had that kind of push behind us, and that was 2020, and we got bounced by the Rams in the first round. So, it's been a long, hard season, a long, hard decade, really, where we've just been constantly teetering between, 8 and 10 wins. And it's just it feels good to finally have a solid team that I know can make a push and that I believe can win the Super Bowl. I didn't think that until was that week 18 still? Week 18 game against the San Francisco 49ers. That was the game that was really okay, we can actually win the Super Bowl. I knew we were in the 1 seed, talk the whole season, But that was the game that really told me this team is built to go all the way. And it will be nice to get, some sense of closure to it, but it won't take away that pain.
Getting your get back is amazing. As a fan that has played a team in the Super Bowl twice, when I tell you, if it wasn't for my wife holding me back, I wouldn't have my TV downstairs when they called that flag on Bradbury. The get back, it feels so much better. But
I've been saying this whole playoff run for Seattle has been the revenge tour. Like you got to beat the Niners again. You got to stomp them out, like embarrass them. That was fantastic. It was quite cathartic. I celebrated hard that night. You got to beat the Rams again. The only team that was really the Rams were the team I was dreading facing the most, just because I knew they could beat us. I wasn't too worried about San Francisco because I saw how we put them down week 18. I was like, okay, we can deal with them. The Rams is always going to be a 50-50 game. I'm not 100% certain about the Patriots because, I have watched a lot of their games, but not, like with the same focus as the NFC teams. But I do. The Rams, once we got the Rams out of the way, I feel pretty good about this team.
That's a great way to put it.
I had the Rams going in. Going in, I had the Rams, so I 100% agree. Once you guys beat the Rams, I was like, okay, this you guys are a little bit better than I thought.
Yeah, Seahawks are legit. I actually said to Mac after, because my girlfriend posted a video of me on Instagram after the loss at the grocery store buying some more alcohol, and she just and she's a 49ers fan, but she put the caption, as Mac points to the sky for the audio only listeners, and she even put as the caption, even though she's also a 49ers fan, was big fat fucking loser vibes, because that's how I was feeling. And so Mac reacted to that with a laughing emoji, and the thing I said to Mac after that, and I also said this to my friend Ashley, who is Matthew Pearson's girlfriend, another Seahawks fan, is you guys are elite. You're going to go win it all. And I stand by that take right now. As we get into our predictions for the game, we're going to tell you who wins, what the final score is, who gets the Super Bowl MVP. And before we go around the panel, I wanted to highlight a couple of YouTube comments. Shout out to Uncle Manny for always tuning in, as he says, Seattle has the more talented team that is hot at the right time. They take this one. And at Rhino Spencer 7929 says game comes down to how May bounces back after a mistake against the Hawks defense. If they get going and smell blood, it's lights out for New England, and the Lombardi is getting hoisted by Darnold at Lumen South. Oh no! Got to get that off the screen. I saw it already, but I had to read it.
It'll be officially christened that if we lift the Lombardi.
Oh, yeah. And Kevin was already trolling in our Stats Over Politics fantasy football group chat earlier, the fact that there's a Sam Darnold banner on the south side of the stadium right by where the Amtrak train is. And the caption was from a tweet, and it said, the Seahawks are already hanging banners at Levi Stadium, something the 49ers couldn't do, even though it's a banner of a player, not like the 49ers have never hung a banner of a player outside the stadium. Nevertheless, I wanted to start things off by just reading off our guy Jaevon Toddy's prediction, and context matters, as Kevin has already alluded to. Jaevon is a diehard San Francisco 49ers fan, just like myself. So I'll just kick things off by giving that context, because I think it does matter. Not to discredit Toddy's opinion, because he knows ball, just like his fantasy football team name says, with Ball Knower University. But this is Toddy's pick. He says Patriots win 30-27. Drake May wins MVP, 270 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, probably 1 interception. So that's Toddy's pick, is the Patriots win in a bit of a shootout by 3. Drake May is your Super Bowl MVP. Kevin, now I'm going to toss it over to you. What's your prediction and why?
Shaun, the two of our guests, we know who they're going with. I really want to hear your first, because before the show, you said you weren't going to let your bias come to the decision. So I want to hear who you're picking for the Super Bowl.
Well, shout out to Cousin James, because he says it will never be Lumen South, and I agree. Just they stole that name from us. We call SoFi Levi South. But nevertheless, Kevin asked for my pick, so here I am. you guys who may be tuned in on YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, see what I'm rocking today. I got my red and blue Sacramento Kings hat on. I'm wearing a Super Diana Taurasi Team USA Olympic jersey shirt. So one could say that I'm feeling very patriotic right now with my red, white, and blue on. And at the top, I really, really did not want to root for the Patriots, but yet here I am rooting for the Patriots.
The bias.
But, Kevin, before you undercut me with that bias, I try to be a realist on this podcast. I try to be objective on this podcast. I'm letting you all know who I'm rooting for. Begrudgingly, I am rooting for the New England Patriots. But
surprise.
If week 18, yeah, big surprise. If week 18 didn't show me enough, the divisional round showed me everything I possibly need to see. And then you add on the NFC Championship, in which Seattle ends up beating the Rams. I got Seattle winning this game. My stomach is turning even saying it, but I got Seattle winning this game. Sam Darnold is your Super Bowl MVP, but I think Seattle will win this game 20-16 on the back of their defense, because just as much as I told Mac and Ashley after the Seahawks put belt to ass on my 49ers, this Seahawks team is elite. The defense is the best in the NFL. The Patriots got a damn good defense too, led by Mike Vrabel. The turnaround that he has led within that program and franchise is remarkable to do what he has done in year one. But Mike Macdonald, I thought nothing of Mike Macdonald getting hired as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. I was like, all right, this is who they're replacing Pete Carroll with. Cool. Don't got to worry about them for the next 5 years. Yet here we are, and the Seattle Seahawks are back in the Super Bowl in Mike Macdonald's second year. They got the best defense in the NFL. They revitalized Sam Darnold after he took a gap year. You could say that he took a redshirt year in Santa Clara. And now he's back where he revitalized his career, and he has a chance to hoist the Lombardi Trophy. The Seahawks win 20-16. Sam Darnold is your MVP. But the Seahawks will win this game on the strength of their defense. And a couple of guys who were in the NFC least just basically wasting their careers away with Leonard Williams with the Jets and the Giants. You have DeMarcus Lawrence in Dallas for, I think, 11 years, something like that. Those guys are going to get after Drake May, and they're going to make his life miserable. The Seahawks win 20-16. Sam Darnold is your MVP. I'm going to go throw up now because just saying all that made me feel physically sick. Kevin, we can toss it over to you next.
I'm proud of you, Shaun. I'm proud of you. I'm proud that you didn't let the NFC divisional opponent get to you. So I've been going back and forth on this. I can see both teams winning. But at the end of the day, I think I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks. Why am I going with the Seattle Seahawks? Because I think it's going to come down to playmakers. And Emiliano mentioned it perfectly. You know, when you think Patriots, you've never thought big names. I mean, besides the Randy Moss, you had Edelman, and there's a lot of guys that weren't projected to be good. We always know with the Patriots, they can get guys from the arena, and Tom Brady's going to get you to win. So you don't need the big names for the Patriots. But JSN is on another level. We talked about last week. Kaz took him over Justin Jefferson. And, it's not really crazy to say something like that. So I have the Seahawks barely winning this game 27-24. I think the Patriots defense is going to show up and give them hell. I've always been one to say Sam Darnold is going to turn into a frog. We've seen him turn into a frog, throw 4 picks, and they still win. So it's going to be a lot for the Patriots to handle. But I think the Seahawks win this game 27-24, and the Super Bowl MVP is Jackson Smith-Njigba. And I have a crazy take. I think he's going to set the record for receiving yards in the Super Bowl, formerly hosted by Jerry Rice at 215 yards. In the NFC Championship game, he had 160 yards. So who says he can't go get those extra yards? And if he doesn't finish top 1, I definitely think he gets top 3. because the second one is Ricky Sanders at 193 yards, and the third is 162 yards. So I definitely think JSN will put himself in elite categories. And then we're going to have some tough conversations next year when we talk about who's the best receiver when we do our rankings. So I'm going to take the Seahawks 27-24.
Well, that's 3 picks for the Seahawks right now, Emiliano. And one thing I wanted to add before I had to step away for a moment, just to recompose myself, picking that team up north. As Ohio State fans, Kevin and I always refer to a team up north. There's another team up north that just makes me sick. But the real Easter egg in my attire for today is, yes, I may be wearing patriotic colors, but I pointed out the shirt. Seattle legend, Sue Bird, on the shirt, otherwise known as the close personal friend of Mr. Kevin Dent.
I knew this photo. As soon as I see your shirt, I knew this photo was coming up.
Yep, and that absolutely rattled Mac right there. But we're going to toss it over to Emiliano now. I'm assuming you're not going to keep the unanimous streak going, Emiliano, but let's hear your prediction for the game.
Yeah, I almost said you should just pass to Mac. That way, we can round out the ones that are going to be regretting their decision a few days from now. I'll start by just getting it out of the way. Absolutely going Patriots, not just because I'm a fan and that's what I want to have happen. It just kind of feels like that type of game in general, no matter the jerseys on the field. It just feels like that type of game where one team is just so heavily favored and talked about that we're just kind of forgetting, I think, kind of what the Patriots did throughout the year. So 3 kind of big wins maybe that I look back on, and this is just kind of stuff that I was looking up before we were chatting. Week 5 Bills win, which also played a big part in us getting the 2 seed, of course. 23-20. Close game, figured out a way to win, not that high scoring. Saints had the 9th best defense. We all know the Saints weren't that good overall as a football team, but 9th best defense, 25-19. Again, close game, figured out a way to win, less than 30 points scored. Browns had the 4th defense overall, and we beat them 32-13. So even before the postseason, when we've had the easiest walk to the Super Bowl, even though we've played top 5 defenses all along the way, it just goes back to my point from earlier. I think that this is a true Patriot win. We just figure it out. You gave, in my humble opinion, the coach of the year, Mike Vrabel, 2 weeks to prepare for, yes, probably the best offense that we're going to be facing all postseason, probably the best offense that we'll be facing over the last 10 weeks or so. If Josh Allen had any receivers, then they might be at the top of the list, but here we are. I think the difference maker will be our defense. So I'm going Patriots 20-21. My Super Bowl MVP is a defensive player. I'll give it to Carlton Davis or Gonzo.
Ooh.
Probably with a pick 6. That's if we're offering a hot take, I'm offering that we will look back on this and say we should have known what Sam Darnold was going to do in the Super Bowl. A pick 6 to make it 21-20. Patriots win the Super Bowl. We're back. The evil empire is back, and get used to this. I tried so hard. All postseason to not be that Patriot fan that's like, oh, here we are, we're back. And it was about halfway through the 4th quarter. I just kind of started chuckling. I was like, no way are the Patriots really going back to the Super Bowl. And I can feel it. I can feel it bubbling up in me right now. But yeah, I think the Patriots win, and watch out.
I love it. Emiliano, I wanted to let you know something because I didn't get to mention it in my pick. If it was any team but the Seahawks, I'd be going for the Patriots. But another reason why I'm going for the Seahawks is I would love for Shaun to see another divisional or conference team in his conference win another Super Bowl before he sees the Niners host one up. So this is going to be just magic to my ears, but I think you guys have a hell of a chance. So if it was anybody but them in any other conference, I'd be riding with you, but there will be nothing to make me more happy than to come in here and see Shaun watch another team in his conference celebrate his locker room.
And to that, and right before you go, Mac, I'm sorry, but to maybe set you up with some positivity before you give us the take that we're all curious about. There's nothing that I hate more in the NFL than giving up on quarterbacks too soon. And if a quarterback was going to fail anywhere, it's going to be the New York Jets. We've seen it time and time and time and time and time again. If Sam Darnold goes on to get a bank-breaking contract with Seattle Seahawks in year one, takes JSN to become wide receiver one, and wins a Super Bowl, I'm all for that. If my team was not playing this weekend, I would be all over Sam Darnold getting this kind of resurgence to his career. So this is completely just yes, a little biased. I do actually believe they're going to win, but I'm all for Sam Darnold proving everyone wrong. And once again, it's kind of a win-win because the Jets have to watch their old quarterback win a Super Bowl. So even if we lose, it's still the Jets losing. So
that's one way to look at it.
Yeah, and I need to correct myself real quickly. I was saying when I passed it over to Emiliano that it was unanimous. Toddy picked the Patriots. And so now we've got 2 picks for the Seahawks, 2 picks for the Patriots. And Mac will rejoin us in just a moment. But while we wait for him to pop back up on the screen, I wanted to just mention something that Emiliano just said is a game-sealing interception for the Patriots to beat the Seahawks in the Super Bowl again. Oh, man.
History has a way of repeating itself, Shaun.
That would be sweet for me as a San Francisco 49ers fan. But Mr. McIrvin III, before we toss it over to you to get your pick and to break the tie, we can all suspect where you're going to go with your pick on this one. But I will add, since I was pouring more salt in the wound, highlighting the game-sealing interception that Emiliano is predicting, is let's not forget how the Patriots started this season, losing to former Seattle Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith in the Las Vegas Raiders, who are going to have the first overall pick. And me saying that further invalidates the fact that the 49ers beat the Seahawks in week 1. It's like week 1 is weird, and the 49ers clearly were not the better team this year when it comes to their rivalry with the Seattle Seahawks. But now, Mac, tossing it over to you. What's your prediction for Super Bowl 60 and who you got winning the MVP?
So I think we know where I'm going, but I'll touch on a few points that you all made in your predictions. Emiliano, you are 100% correct. Teams give up on quarterbacks entirely too fast. I think you see that a lot throughout the league. But I will say I did not think that Sam Darnold would have the resurgence he did. I led at the top of the show by saying I thought I was wrong. I thought that Geno had a tiny bit higher ceiling than Darnold. That was incorrect on me. That's why I'm here and I'm not in the NFL. Shaun, you mentioned you didn't think much of Mike McDonald when the Seahawks originally hired him. I will say I did not like the decision to move on from Carroll, mainly because I wanted him to retire on his own terms. I think if you're the greatest coach in franchise history, you've earned the right to do that. That being said, I understand why Seattle made the move they did. And it looks like they've been vindicated by that move. And Mike McDonald was my number one choice. And the reason he was my number one choice is because the Baltimore Ravens played the Seattle Seahawks in that 23 season. And they beat the absolute hell out of us. I don't know if you remember. I remember it all too well. The final score from that game was 37-3. That was a horrific game for us. And at that moment, when they decided to move on with Pete Carroll, I said, get that dude. That's the defense I want to see on my team. And he's brought that type of energy to the Seattle Seahawks. And I know the Ravens fans are mad as hell that they could not keep him in the building, especially now that John Harbaugh is gone. So Mike McDonald, I'm so happy that he's here. He's going to be here for a long time. And hopefully he's going to cap off this second season with a Super Bowl come Sunday night. I hate giving predictions because you can never predict what's going to happen, especially in the NFL. But I will say this, as I've said throughout the show, I think the Seahawks are the more complete team, top to bottom. I think they will, as long as they do exactly what they've done in these last 8 or 9 games, come out and play the game their way and dictate the style of play, they should win this game. I'm not going to say super comfortably, but it's not going to be a blowout and it's not going to be a super tight game, in my opinion. I'm going to say Seattle wins 31-20. And my Super Bowl MVP, Sam Darnold's got to be the favorite, obviously. It's so hard for any non-quarterback to win Super Bowl MVP. I think you could easily make a case for Jackson Smith and Jigba, like Kevin did in his prediction. I think if you look at the defensive side of the ball, you look at Ernest Jones, you look at DeMarcus Lawrence, those two are absolutely going to be in the running for it. But my pick and the game changer that we got midseason is going to be Rashid Shaheed. I think he is going to be such a gadget player for the Seahawks on special teams and on offense. And when they try to lock up Jackson Smith and Jigba, they may be successful in doing it. Christian Gonzalez is a great corner. They've got great defense. Shout out Sac State, Marte Mapu on the Patriots. I think the Patriots have really good defense. They could key in on Jackson Smith and Jigba, and that's where it's going to open for Rashid Shaheed. He's going to score at least one touchdown. He's going to have some good returns. I think he's going to walk away your Super Bowl MVP.
That is a tremendous pull right there, because when the Seahawks got Rashid Shaheed, I was like, all right, well, that should be a good addition for them. Like, they need some wide receiver depth, and I totally overlooked everything that he would do on special teams. And then I learned 13 seconds into the divisional round that my team was not going to be winning that day, and that it just wasn't going to be our day. And that was because of Rashid Shaheed. And so that is a great pick. So